Hey y'all, welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley. This is Daily Decolonizing, and today we're going to be talking about decolonizing from family. Specifically, we'll add in old friends or friends who are no longer aligned with you as well, but specifically family for those of you who are the black sheep, who are awakening, who are different, who are doing things different, who are on a decolonizing journey. I just went no contact with my mother, and that was the last family member that I talked to. My progression of decolonizing from my family has been going on for about 15 years. The first was my sister, and then cousins, aunts, uncles, more aunts and uncles and cousins, stuff like that, and then finally my mom. My father passed away when I was 14, and I believe, well, I won't get into that, but I have two, well, my family is conservative. I don't know. Some of them on my father's side are like liberal, but probably not progressive liberal, probably just like, I'm a good person liberal, but they are in fact colonizers, like real colonizers. My aunt is an academic and religious colonizer, and my uncle on my father's side, these are both on my father's side, is a military colonizer. He's retired from the military now, but his son, I guess, is in the military, following in the footsteps. And his wife, who is, not blood related to me, was also in the military. That's where they met. But he did some colonizing work in Kenya that my other aunt told me about. And she, the aunt that I'm talking about, has a building in Ghana at like a church missionary. I'm not sure what denomination they are. Methodist, maybe? Methodist. I grew up Presbyterian, but my family ranges in like, Methodist or Christian. We're not Catholic, but yeah, evangelical probably. And my aunt has a building in Ghana at this church compound or whatever with her name on it. That's literal colonizing. So, I don't speak to my family. I'm the black sheep. Oh, you can't see it. And it has been a hard journey. My mom and I were cool for a little while. We've been pretty touch and go. We've had a very, codependent trauma bond since my father passed away. I don't want to get into my relationship with my mother. It has been really bad for a while, but I really needed support financially, and felt obligated to continue having a relationship. And the last conversation we had, what was it, last week or the week before, the reason I felt obligated, and she admitted to it, was, well, if we're not going to have a relationship, then I need to rethink everything. So I'm probably going to lose inheritance, whatever. I have received inheritance money from my father's mother. After she passed away, it would have gone to my father, but because he passed away, my sister and I received it, his portion, split. And that inheritance money really was huge in my life. It helped me do a lot of things. It bought us our first RV, that it helped me get pregnant, first of all, too. But it was money that I lived off of, it wasn't something I was able to put away. I'm poor. My family was like, pay your student loans. I said, no, I'm gonna buy groceries, like a car and a house for my kid, and, have a kid. I was able to get my body good, with that money. Anyway, all that to say is, it was a hard thing to let go of, but honestly, I felt like I had my soul tied to the devil. because money is the root of all evil. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to deserve and earn my own money. I'm finally in this space of healing, where I'm able to make opportunities for myself. It hasn't been an easy road. It hasn't been overnight. I'm grateful for the help I have received financially, from my family, but it never ever was without criticism, without obligation. It was never without guilt trips, shame. It was never a gift. It was always conditional, transactional. And that was my relationship to my family. So all that to say is, with the economy at this time, I understand if folks can't decolonize fully, if you are receiving financial support from a toxic family. But I think one of the most important things to really think about is, I've tried for years to talk to my family about situations from the world from a different lens of versus religion and white colonial academics, and I was put into mental institutions several times, and completely just discredited. So it's actually pretty entertaining at this point in my life, especially seeing the global movement happening, to be like, wish you would have listened to me. I've lost tons of friends too because of that. People don't want to fucking hear it. So I just want to share, because when we decolonize from our family specifically, it can be really, really, really hard to, let go of that safety net, no matter how much bullshit came along with that. In this case specifically, I finally have gotten to this point where it's just like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I've healed enough that I'm making opportunities for myself, and I'm grateful. But ever since Palestine has really, ever since October, I've tried to have conversations, and it's just a completely different world for them. And I have no interest in being around or in relationship with anyone who absolutely refuses to acknowledge reality, right? People who absolutely refuse to give up any sort of comfort, or even help financially. My family is so wealthy, but they use their money colonially, if I had the money that they had, I would be able to help so many people with their GoFundMes, or help organizations, and that's what I would love to do. And being in a family where you understand that they will not do that, it sucks. It's hard. But anyway, again, it's the root of all evil, right? When you have a certain amount of money, you think you've made it. You can't buy your way into heaven, bro. You can't. If you're conscious in your heart, it's the law of Mayet, in Egyptian times, where your heart is weighed with a feather. I've mentioned this before. I don't know what I was talking about, but if you're not living a conscious life, you can't buy your way into heaven. You can't take, your goods with you. So for me, on my journey, I've been decolonizing and in a spiritual space for, like I said, a good 15 years, through trauma, through trying to have conversations about the world, and they literally were like, you're fucking crazy, you need to go into a mental institution. I think for me, the hardest thing has been never being heard. I think often, I feel like this is one of those things in my head. I don't know if you've seen The Princess Diaries at all, but the best friend Lily says something along the lines of, this isn't verbatim, but she has a radio show that no one watches, and then her best friend becomes this princess and is given this giant platform, and she's like, oh, you have no idea what it's like to want to be heard and nobody hears you or cares. And I think about that so much because that's how I have felt for years and years and years and years. And I have been, delegitimized. I've never been patted on the back. My dad was a really big cheerleader for me, but he died when I was very young. And ever since then, I've been stuck in this trauma bond, this transactional, behavioral, pathologizing relationship with my mother and my sister. And they have just tried to put me in this box, like I feel sometimes like the Jack in the Box, like they just keep shoving me down and down and down, and I will not do it anymore. I'm 37 years old, and these motherfuckers in my family treat me like I am 14. Like when my grandmother, the one that I received the inheritance from, she made it to her 100th birthday, and then she was like, I'm good, and like passed away a couple months later. And when I went to her funeral, my uncle from the military looked at me. So this was like just a few years ago. I was still in my marriage. It was before I had my son. So it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago. So I was in my early 30s, 30 maybe. And he looked at me and he was like, oh, you're still 17. So like, if you're a person who experiences completely like gaslighting because you're different than your family or friends even, or whatever, I know how that feels. And it's a decolonizing process to get to a point of choosing yourself. And it's taken me a really long time to do that. But like thinking back on it, especially not talking to my mother, I realized just how abusive that was. And the things that I was made to be grateful for, like her help, are things that, like, these folks would never, ever have been able to serve. For instance, when I bought the RV, the refrigerator wasn't working, and my mom bought us, like, a college refrigerator, and it was, like, this, I'm grateful. But it was such a, okay, well, I'll do this for you, like, kind of thing, Like, I have a child. I was breastfeeding I feel like that's one of the reasons I breastfed for so long, because, like, I just didn't want to ask for help. Every time I've had to ask for help, it's been, fine, when, like, it's nothing to them, and I'm not trying to be ungrateful. I am grateful, but it's been a very, very toxic situation with my family. The last time I talked to my sister, we were reconnecting a little bit when we moved off grid 2 years ago. Oh, I'm gonna run out of time. Okay, I'll make a part 2.